Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing Queen and Slim. This was directed by Melina Matsasoka and stars Daniel Kaluuya and Jodie Turner-Smith. Queen and Slim's first date takes an unexpected turn when a police officer pulls them over for a minor traffic violation. But ultimately the situation escalates. After Slim wrestles with a police officer, he gets hold of his gun and shoots the officer in self-defense. They are ultimately labelled cop killers, and they feel they have no choice but to go on the run and evade the law. When a video of the incident goes viral, the unwitting outlaws soon become a symbol of trauma, terror, grief and pain for people all across the country. This was a film I hadn't quite heard a lot about. I'd seen a trailer for it a while ago, but then I kept hearing a lot of buzz about and seeing interviews with the particular actors in the film. And I became quite fascinated by this movie. Both the actors are brilliant. Daniel Kaluuya is fantastic, an up-and-comer. He's really believable and fantastic in this. And I thought Jodie Turner-Smith was really great. This is her first film. She's a model who's become an actress, and she's fantastic in it. She really plays this character in such a great way. It's very believable, and it feels like she's been acting for years, and I thought she was great. I think this is a very important story to be told at the moment. It's very relevant. It looks at racial profiling. It looks at the effects of what happens when someone gets shot, whether it be a police officer or African American or anyone. And it really looks at the violence that happens because of this and how things can escalate very quickly. It looks at how the officer in question ultimately acts out of fear and doesn't know what these two are going to do. But we know who they are. We don't know him. And when he sort of pulls them over, it feels like he's trying to find something, anything at all that he can arrest them for. And then things just get out of hand from there. But it looked at how this officer, he made up his mind what he thought was going on without actually having the evidence. This is something that happens all the time. Things get out of hand. Police officers have a lot of fear regards to this sort of thing, going up behind cars and not knowing what's going to happen because there's been a lot of shootings. But it also looks at the other side. When African American people are pulled over by the police, what happens then? They have fear as well. And I think this film really captures that. I really like the fact it's this simple story of these two normal and good people who get swept up in things, who, due to a certain circumstances, are thrust into a life and think that was ever possible for. And it looks at the struggles along the way. It looks at how they go from place to place and they try and find a safe place to stay and hide and to change their looks and ultimately to continue on and come up with a plan. What's really interesting about the journey is it's these two strangers that are brought together because of this circumstance. And they start, as they go on this journey together, they start to learn things about themselves. And we start to learn about who they are and what lives they've lived. And I thought that was a really fascinating way to do it. I like it we see it from the start to the end of this whole thing, this whole situation and what transpires for them. In many ways, they called it the modern Bonnie and Clyde. It does feel like that a little bit, because in the original Bonnie and Clyde story, you know, they ultimately accidentally killed someone, and then they go on the run. They ultimately kill more people along the way in the Bonnie and Clyde story, where this is just really focused on the shooting of this police officer. But it also feels like movies like Thelma and Louise. You know, these two people together, they're going on this journey together, and ultimately something bad happens and they go on the run, and they can never go back to the life that they had previous to the experience that they've had. And it sort of feels like that in a lot of ways. And there are some really great thrilling moments throughout the film. We really get to see them trying to work out what to do and the different places they go and where they're trying to hide, and these moments of suspense, a lot of obstacles they have to overcome in order to get to where they're going. But what I liked most about this film was the quiet moments in between. The suspenseful stuff is great and well done, and you really feel from, you get on the edge of your seat in these particular sequences. But it's the quieter moments in between that really drew me in. It's where you start to see these two people learning about each other, and we start to learn backstory on who they are and where they've come from. And you look at Slim, he gets swept up in this and does this act that he never thought he was capable of, and the effect that has on him. And as the film goes along, they start to do things they've always wanted to do because they don't know if they're going to get through this. And I thought that was really powerful. It also looks at the impact of what they've done and how they become a symbol for the people who are pushed around by the police, that are profiled, that are harassed, that are killed. And a lot of people get behind that, and this movement begins. They didn't expect it to happen, and they didn't expect to become this symbol. but they have. But there's people who want to be remembered. And that's a big thing in the film. As human beings, we want to be remembered. We want to serve some sort of purpose or be a symbol of something. It sort of lifts them up a bit and gives them support and gives them something to believe in. It gives them something to have faith in, I guess ultimately was what it is. How it escalates quickly and how these protests and how the protests turn violent. These people who are protesting, they think violence is the answer. And it really looks at this. And I thought that was a fascinating way to go about it, to sort of show their journey, but to show the effects of what they've done as well on the wider community. I thought that was really great. I really loved the way it was shot. I loved all the music. The music's fantastically used and serves a great purpose. I like how each car that they take or get into, the music's different and it evolves along the way. And I like the fact this where they have to change their looks, and he shaves his head and she takes the braids out of her hair. And I felt this was like them not just changing themselves, but stripping themselves bare. There's a moment where they're laying in bed together and they're both in their underwear, and they've stripped themselves down really barely to talk about who they are and the experiences they have. I just thought it was a good way for us to get to know these people and to really show who they are as human beings. There's a feeling of tension in this film. You're not quite sure what's going to happen. You're not sure if these two people are going to make it or not. And you really start to care about them. You really start to worry that they're going to get caught or shot at or killed. And there's moments throughout it where you're just on the edge of your seat and they're just having a normal conversation, but you're in the back of your mind, you're like, what's going to happen next? I think it's really well written, it's real, and it's very important. It's a realistic conversation about the things that are happening and have been happening for a long time in America in regards to racial profiling and people being stopped and being fearful what might happen. This film really encapsulated that in a solid and interesting way. Final thoughts. At the heart of it, I think this film is really about how sometimes circumstances can shape and change us. We don't always expect these things to happen, but once they do, it really shows who we are as a human being and what we're capable of and what we feel or what we might do in these sort of circumstances. And it looks at relationships, to how sometimes they're born out of really difficult circumstances or really difficult situations. And sometimes the bond is even stronger because of that. And it also looks at, the impact that things can happen. How people don't set out to be symbols or to be whatever, and then they ultimately become that because of their actions, not who they are, but because of their actions, and people see something in that and they're drawn to it and they want to support it, and it feels like someone's actually doing something against all these bad things that are happening in the world. I thought it was really powerful in that regard. I felt that they didn't really get too deeply into the impact in the wider community. We saw flashes of it and bits and pieces and things towards the end of the movie, but there was no real focus on it. They could have expanded it a bit. We could have just learned a bit more about what had transpired. I'm going to give Queen and Slim 4.5 out of 5. I really loved this film. I thought it was really well done, written, acted. Everything about it was fascinating. There was a good message in it. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.